Nintendo. Hogan's Alley is a 1984 video game by Nintendo. It was one of the first games to use a light gun as an input device. The game presents a player with cardboard cutouts of gangsters and innocent civilians. The player must shoot the gangs and spare the innocent people. On Wikipedia, it says the basis for Hogan's Alley was a shooting range on the grounds of the Special Police School at Camp Perry, a training facility for the National Guard of the United States. It was also called Hogan's Alley. The Special Police School was closed during World War II. In 1987, approximately 3 years after the release of the video game Hogan's Alley, the FBI Academy established a small, simulated city called Hogan's Alley to serve as a venue for training operations. I never played this game, I don't think, very much when it came out. Maybe once or twice I did play it, and replaying it, I just didn't care for it. It seems people like it. I guess it is a little bit more interesting than Duck Hunt, but overall, I'm not a fan of Duck Hunt. So, just not a fan of the light gun, and it's probably deserving of a fair, but I'm giving it a bad just because I just could care less about light gun games. Sure, Duck Hunt was fun when you first got it. It came out of the box. You didn't have a lot of games. You played it for a while. You never really played it again. I played it at a friend's, I'm guessing, because I never owned it. I wouldn't even wanted to have borrowed this game from a friend, so... Nintendo. Ice Climber is a vertical platform video game developed and published by Nintendo for the Family Computer in Japan and the Nintendo Entertainment System in North America. In Ice Climber, the characters Popo and Nana, collectively known as the Ice Climbers, venture up 32 ice-covered mountains to recover stolen vegetables from a giant condor. In some European countries, the NES console was sold bundled with this game, increasing Ice Climber's familiarity outside Japan. The inclusion of Nana and Popo as playable characters in the 2001 GameCube title Super Smash Bros. Melee brought the game renewed attention. So yeah, the first player controls Popo, a boy wearing a blue Eskimo parka, while the second player controls Nana, a girl wearing a pink one. The only tool they carry is a wooden mallet to carve openings in the ice above them and to club enemies. Each mountain level consists of 8 layers of colorful ice and a bonus stage. Development of the game, Ice Climber, along with NES Open Tournament Golf, is one of 2 games directed by longtime Nintendo producer Kenji Miki. It is also the first video game programmed by Kazuaki Morita. He considered his work on Ice Climber to be a warm-up before becoming a main programmer on Super Mario Bros. Morita was later credited with central programming roles in numerous titles within the Super Mario Bros. Series, Legend of Zelda series, and in Star Fox 64. So, Ice Climber was kind of a more simple, basic game for him to warm up on, a practice game. I would love to program a Nintendo game. So, I guess I have to start with a couple basic, simple ones and learn what I'm doing, and then maybe I can move on and program something more complicated. Unlikely. Okay, so let's see. I'm sure some people like this game. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't know. I'm going to say my controller wasn't helping any again. I've mentioned that my controller is a cheap $2 controller off of eBay, a USB plug-in Nintendo-type clone, and you get what you pay for. But I also said my brother finished Super Mario 1, 2, 3, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, and Ninja Gaiden with the same cheap $2 controller. So if he can finish those games with a cheap garbage controller, I can't blame the controller, although I will in some instances. Not in this one. I did not like the control that much. I found it somewhat difficult and obnoxious and irritating. I didn't really see much point in the game. Nothing was entertaining me that much. The characters or gameplay or objective to get to the top of the mountain. I do remember I played this a little bit when it was a newer game back in the late 80s sometime. And didn't care for it then, didn't put too much effort into it then, and still don't care for it too much. So I am going, although I do recognize that this is a fairly well-made game, and if I had a better controller it might handle better, but still, I'm going to give this just a fair. Other people might give it a higher grade, but I think it's just kind of, the Nintendo could do a lot more, games could be more interesting. This is just a basic warm-up game for the Nintendo. Haha. Kung Fu Master, known as Spartan X in Japan, is a side-scrolling beat-em-up game developed by Irem as an arcade game in 1984 and distributed by Data East in North America. Designed by Takashi Nishiyama, the game was based on Hong Kong martial art films. It is loosely adapted from the Jackie Chan and Sammo Hung film Meals on Wheels 1984, called Spartan X in Japan, with the protagonist Thomas named after Jackie Chan's character in the film. However, the game is more heavily inspired by the Bruce Lee film Game of Death, 1972, which was the basis for the game's concept. Nishiyama, who had previously designed the side-scrolling shooter Moon Patrol 1982, combined fighting elements with a shoot-'em-up gameplay rhythm. Irem and Data East exported the game to the West without the Spartan X license. The player controls Thomas, the titular Kung Fu master, as he fights his way through 5 levels of the Devil's Temple to rescue his girlfriend Sylvia from the crime boss Mr. X. As he ascends the tower, he has to fight many enemies along the way, and 5 end-of-the-level boss battles, a concept inspired by Game of Death. Thomas and each boss have a health meter, and the game temporarily becomes a one-on-one fighting game during boss battles. The game was a major commercial success, topping the Japanese arcade charts and becoming America's second highest arcade game of 1985. While receiving critical acclaim for its fast-paced, side-scrolling gameplay, detailed, colorful graphics. A port for the Nintendo Entertainment System, known as the Famicom in Japan, was developed by Nintendo under the direction of Shigeru Miyamoto, released as Spartan X in Japan and Kung Fu in the West. It sold 3.5 million copies worldwide. Pretty good. It was also one of the top 5 best-selling Commodore 64 games of 1986. It spawned the sequel Spartan X2, 1991, the spiritual successors Trojan, 1986, and Vigilante, 1988. Kung Fu Master was an influential game that had significant cultural impact. It is regarded as the first beat-em-up brawler and an early example of a side-scrolling character action game genre, which became popular during the mid to late 1980s. Miyamoto's work on the NES port inspired his development of the side-scrolling platform game Super Mario Bros. 1985, while Nishiyama was hired by Capcom, where he used the game boss battles as the basis for the fighting game Street Fighter 1987, before working for SNK on fighting games such as Fatal Fury and King of Fighters. So, it's an influential game. Yes, I remember this game back in the late 80s, early 90s on the Nintendo. I had fun with it. It was easy to play, simple to understand, and entertaining. I wasn't super good at it. I never put a lot of time into it. I didn't love the game. Upon replaying the game, I kind of still feel the same way, although I enjoy it a little bit more now. At first, not so much, but I was remembering Kid Nicky, another NES game that comes later on, that I was playing, and I wasn't too fond of, but the more I played it, the more I liked it, and it's very similar to this, but a little bit more cartoony, and it also has one-hit death. So if I could enjoy a game with one-hit death, I can enjoy a game with a life bar. Looking back at it now, it almost seems like it should be a fair, but looking at it at the time, some people would have gave it a great. I can only give it a good. And that's pretty good. Good for Kung Fu Master.